is potting soil. We all love it, we all use it, we all need it. Today I'm talking about one of the blends that I use to care for my 75 plus houseplants. So if you're interested in seeing this blend that I use, very simple, you can find these ingredients everywhere. Stay tuned. I've got a great video coming up for you. Alrighty guys, so let's go ahead and get into this semi DIY potting mix, and I'll explain why I call it a semi DIY potting mix. I'm using just a few ingredients, including this ready-made potting mix here, and then I'm just going to add a couple other things to it, which is perlite, and as you can see, it improves the draining and aeration in potting mixes, and then also peat moss to retain some of the nutrients. Primarily for me, even though it says retains moisture and nutrients, I'm using it to retain the nutrients of this mix, and also of the fertilizers that I use on my plants, the natural fertilizers such as molasses, hydrogen peroxide, eggshells, and things of that nature. So this is one blend that I use. I also have another blend that I use where I use that I mix, where I use worm castings and bone meal. If you guys are interested in seeing me mix that up and how I repot my plants with it, please leave a comment in the comment section, and I will put up another video using that potting mix. So what I'm repotting today, in the last video I did, I showed you guys this Raven ZZ. So I'm going to be repotting this Raven ZZ. This is another ZZ that I propagated, and it's been sitting in my bathroom for probably about 2 years now. Let's see if I can lift this. For about 2 years now in water, and as you can see, those roots are big and healthy. So this plant is ready to be added to some soil. And then I also have this little baby right here. This is a snake plant. Turn it this way. Okay, this is a snake plant. I had it in my kitchen window in a pot and soil, and it kind of just broke off. Some of the leaves rotted, and this is what was left of it. So I went ahead and plopped it into this jar with some water. That was about 3 weeks ago, and as you can see, these roots have grown up nice and healthy and strong in the last 3 weeks. So I'm going to be putting this back into soil and then placing it back into my window. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so this is the mix, guys, and I know some of you might be questioning why I would buy a store-bought potting mix and not just use it straight out of the bag. What I found is that with a lot of potting mixes, they don't have enough substance in them to aerate properly, and they become packed, and it makes it very difficult for the water to get through down to the roots of the plants. So I try my best to make sure I add these things to it to ensure that my plants are getting as much oxygen and air, well, that's the oxygen, right? Yeah, as much air and water down to the roots as possible. So that's why I'm taking this potting mix and adding these two things to it. So whatever your measurements are for the container that you're going to be using, I'm using this small plastic container here, and I'm going to fill this about halfway with the soil mixture. So I'm going to use 3 parts potting mix. So this will help you guys to duplicate this mix at home. 3 parts. So I'm using this old food container from the farmer's market. So I did 3 scoops of the potting mix. So 3 parts potting mix to a half part of perlite to 2 parts of peat moss. No, I'm spilling it. All right. And then I'm going to do 2 parts of the peat moss. And that was a little bit less than 1, so I'm going to add just a little bit more to even out that first scoop of the peat moss that I did. And that's it. So once I have these all into the container, I think I need to lift this up. Okay. So you guys can see, I'm just going to go in with my hand. Now the perlite for some people can be a little irritating to the skin. So if you have sensitive skin, please go ahead and put gloves on before you start mixing this up. I think my hands are just used to it. It doesn't irritate me like it did when I first started. So I'm just mixing this in and make sure it's mixed up really well. I don't want any clumps, particularly clumps of the perlite. I don't want any clumps of that. And I want to make sure that my soil is all broken. Did I say broken? I said broken, right? Y'all know broken ain't a word, right? Broken up.
It's a new word.
Broken up. So yeah, just a quick little mix here to get it all incorporated. And then that's it. Once you get this all mixed up, you can go ahead and repot your plants as you normally would. Oh, if y'all got long nails, put some gloves on, y'all, because you're going to have this soil all under your nails. Like you see, my nails are not even that long, but there's still soil under there. So you don't want to get soil in your chicken batter or in your pasta sauce later on in the evening. So go ahead and put some gloves on. All right, so yeah, so that's all mixed up. And make sure if you're going to be doing your own soil, put it in some sort of container that doesn't have to be airtight, but you want to make sure that no water can get into it. So this one has a lid on it that I can just snap up, and I can just put this in a dry, cool place until I'm ready to use it again, because I won't be using all of this mixture in today's video. All right, so the first one that I'm going to be repotting is this little snake plant here. As you can see, the roots on here are just beautiful and gorgeous, and now that we've got roots, it's ready for it to go back into soil, because as I mentioned, it was in soil. I had to end up taking it out, and now I'm going to put it back in. That's going to go into this small little container here. A lot of times when you buy plants, especially I found these a lot at Walmart, they'll come in these little plastic things. They're not the greatest, they're not aesthetically pleasing, but they do what they're supposed to do. They have great drainage holes in the bottom, and then it has this little drainage tray on the bottom that you can detach. So that's really functional, and that's where I'm going to be using it. So the first thing I'm going to do is just scoop up a little bit of the soil. And because this one has a drainage tray on the bottom, I don't need to add any weed mat. And I'll show you how I use the weed mat when I get to the ZZ plant here. So I'm going to go ahead and put the soil in. And I like to fill my pots up almost to the top. So if you guys can see what I'm doing here, where the level is, it's right below the rim. So about a ½ inch or so below the rim of the pot. And then I'm making just a little well in the middle. And that's going to be where the plant and the roots go in. I want to make sure that the roots can make their way down as deep as possible, because we know that the roots of the plant, those are the anchors. And then I'm just going to go ahead and plop that in and bring the soil around. And just be gentle, especially when you're when you have new roots after you've propagated. Those roots are new and they're still very, very sensitive and they're fragile. So just be careful with those roots. Now for this one, I'm going to put a little bit more soil, because as I packed it down, I realized that I could put a little bit more soil in. So I'm just going to go ahead around and add that soil. And if you get it on your leaves, guys, it's okay. This is not a contest for who does the best repotting, or I should say the neatest repotting. If you get it on the leaves, that's okay. You can always just brush it off. And one thing I didn't add, make sure that your potting mix is dry when you are repotting your plants. It makes it a lot easier to get the soil into the pot. So make sure your potting mix is dry. And I don't know if you guys can actually see what I'm doing here, but I am packing the soil down around the base of the plant to help give it some structure. If you have a little brush, you can use that to blow the soil off of any leaves. But I don't have one, so I'm just blowing. So, you laughing at me?
No.
Yes, you are. So that's it, guys. This one is repotted. I'm going to Once I repot the others, I will take this inside and I will give it a big drink of water. And then I will just put it right back where it was, which was on my kitchen windowsill. And this one should continue to grow well. Now, one point that I'd like to make, when you're repotting a plant after you've done a water propagation, make sure that you keep your soil moist until that plant gets acclimated to being in soil. The transition from water to soil can be a little traumatic for some plants, especially if they've been in water propagating for a significant amount of time. Like my ZZ plant has probably been in that water growing for about 2 years. So I'm going to have to make sure that I keep the soil very, very moist so that it doesn't go into shock and die. So here we go. That's my little snake plant. I've packed that soil down nice and tight around the base, and I'm going to give it a big drink of water. That one's ready to go. Now for this ZZ, I'm going to be using this ceramic pot. This one does have a drainage hole in the bottom, but what I found is sometimes when you start pouring the soil in, the soil just falls right out. So I like to cut a little piece of weed mat. This is weed mat. You don't have to go out and buy any fancy potting mesh. Get you a roll of weed mat from the dollar store, your Dollar General, your Walmart. It's like $1 or $2, and you can just cut pieces up. So that's what I'm doing. I'm cutting up the pieces, and I'm just laying it down in the bottom of this pot. Just like that. So when I put the soil, when I add the soil to it, I won't be wasting any soil. My potting mix, I won't be wasting any of it. So I'm gonna go ahead and let's get rid of that. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and same thing. I like to fill it up just to the top, right under that rim. And I'm gonna go ahead and add a little bit more to this because my ZZ plant is gonna go right into the middle, into this well that I'm going to make right here in the middle for this plant. I have to tell you guys, when I'm doing, when I'm repotting, I really enjoy this. You know, you hear the word grounding a lot, and for me, this is the best form of grounding. It allows me to connect with nature, get my hands dirty, be purpose-filled, and take care of my plant babies. So I really enjoy the repotting process. When I first started with the house plants, I didn't make my own potting soil. I just used what came straight out of the container or the bag, but over the years I found that they're not always the best blends, even if you get an organic blend. So I like to make my own, and I really like, you know, I'm an alchemist. I like mixing things and seeing how they work and what fares the best. So I enjoy this process, and I really enjoy just connecting with nature and enjoying the peace. You hear the birds in the background, just the peace of being out here. So yeah, so let me go ahead and pull these out. So this one was not in this container. This was propagating in my front room window, and you see it has just a very, very small baby root on it, but that is enough for me to go ahead and place it into the soil, so I'm going to do it. These were all propagated from the same mother plant. Initially, when I cut it away, I only cut this big one right here, and these huge roots grew. And over the last couple of months, this little baby shot out from the base of the one that I initially cut. So these roots are so big and so huge. I could continue to leave it in the water, but I don't see any reason why. At this point, it's been in there for quite some time. What I will say about this ZZ is this took probably about 8 months to root. I didn't use any sort of rooting agent. I just clipped it, put it in water, and changed the water periodically. It took about 8 months to root, and then I just left it in the water, partly due to laziness and also partly due to not having the correct pot for it. So now that the roots are healthy and fat, I'm going to put it into this pot here so that it has room to grow, along with this little baby right here. So as I mentioned, I like to make that well. And what I'm doing now is just bringing that soil around those roots. And you might ask why I'm using such a large pot for just one stalk. I'm using such a large pot because the ZZ roots are huge. and they get those big nodes at the base. I want to make sure that this plant has enough room to grow and that those roots have enough room to branch out and to hold this plant up as it grows. He's a little baby. I'm going to take this one and I'm just going to plop it in right here along the side. I'm making sure it's down in there good. And that's it. So I'm going to add a little bit more soil just around. And that's it. And as you see, I packed it down in there pretty good so that the plant won't tip over. And you know, when we're repotting, the roots have not taken hold yet in the new pot, so we do have to apply a little bit of pressure, be a little firm with it. And that's it. This one is also going to be in my kitchen window. For those of you that are not familiar with ZZs do not need bright indirect light. If you have a low light room or a window that doesn't get the best light, a bathroom even, this one is in my bathroom which gets very little natural light, your ZZ will do well. So this one is potted and ready to go. And I'm actually looking, it looks like it's a little off center, but that's okay. All right, and this last one, this is the Raven ZZ that I purchased last week. I'm going to go ahead and take it out, and I did let this soil dry all the way out. I'm going to go ahead and, oh shoot, there's no hole here. This doesn't have a drainage hole, guys, so I'm going to have to put a drainage hole in here and then repot this in a different video. I didn't realize that this pot did not have a drainage hole. I try not to put my plants in pots that don't have drainage holes, although I do have a couple of plants that are in pots without drainage holes. So I'm going to save this one for another video. I'm going to use our ceramic drill bit, and Bay is going to put a hole in here for me. So when I do another repotting video, we will repot this one. Go ahead and stop it. All right, everyone. So I'm sorry I didn't get to repot that Raven ZZ. I don't want this video to be too long, and we're in the process of moving, so I have to find where those ceramic drill bits are. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you guys are interested in seeing me do that other DIY potting soil mix that I mentioned using the worm castings and the bone meal, drop it in the comments and I will make sure that I do that video. Go ahead and follow me on Instagram as well. I talk about a lot of things on Instagram, and for you ladies, my messages are specifically for you. I'm tying in horticulture, plant care, plant love into self-care, self-love, and building self-confidence. So follow me on Instagram as well. Thank you for hanging in there with me. If this is your first visit, thank you. Please be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I will see you in my next video. Peace.